The cold iron of the shackles bit into Ilara's wrists, a cruel contrast to the silken tapestries lining the hallway. She was a ghost in her own story, a creature of the forgotten, barren lands, now dragged into the heart of power and rot. The guards, hulking shifters twice her size, didn't shove her, but their silent, pitying presence was worse. They were leading her to the slaughter, and they knew it. The heavy oak doors at the end of the hall swung open, revealing not a dungeon, but a tomb disguised as a bedchamber. And on the bed, writhing in a pool of moonlight and shadow, was the Alpha. A low, guttural sound tore from his throat, a sound of such profound agony that Ilara's own breath hitched. This was Alpha Kalen of the Stone Creek Pack, and this was the curse she had given up her freedom to cure. Wait, before the next revelation unfolds, if this mystery has already captivated you, let us know where you're following this story from. To ensure you don't miss unexpected claims, broken bonds, or awakenings under the moon, subscribe and stay close. Now, back to the scene. The air in the room was frigid, vibrating with a power that felt oily and ancient. Kalen was nothing like the whispers had described. They spoke of a brute, a tyrant holding his pack together through fear. The man on the bed was a god in ruin. Broad-shouldered and built for command, he was now pale, his skin slick with a feverish sweat. His dark hair was matted to his brow, and his eyes, when they snapped open to fix on her, were a terrifying, incandescent green, swirling with a black, smoky mist. The curse. It was visible, tangible. Shadows that clung to him, writhing over his skin like living oil, sinking into his pores only to emerge again. "Get her out," he growled, the words seeming to tear his throat. "Alpha, she is the one, the healer from the Scraplands. The bargain is struck," said a calmer voice from the corner. A man stepped forward, his face etched with exhaustion. He had the hard, loyal lines of a beta. "This must be Marcus." "Bargain," Kalen hissed, trying to sit up, but the shadows seemed to thicken, pressing him back against the pillows. "There is no cure." Ilara's terror was a living thing, a rat clawing at her ribs. She was a daughter of the dust, raised on scraps and whispers of magic her grandmother had taught her. Her gift was a fragile thing, a knack for mending broken bones in rabbits and singing fevers away from children. It was not meant for this. It was not meant for alphas and curses that felt like the end of the world. But her family's debt to the rival pack, the Blood Moons, was absolute. They would have taken her sister, Lyra, taken her for their breeding dens. Instead, Ilara had offered herself to the Stone Creek Pack, hearing whispers of their alpha's desperate, incurable affliction. Her life, her freedom, her paltry gift, in exchange for her family's protection and the clearing of their debt. "Please," Ilara whispered, her voice trembling. The guards nudged her forward. "Please, Alpha, I must try." Kalen's blazing, cursed eyes locked onto hers. He saw her ragged clothes, her thin wrists, the terror shaking her from head to toe. A snarl of pure disgust twisted his features. "This is what my pack is reduced to? A half-starved, trembling pup? She will not last the night." "I am not a pup," Ilara said, finding a sliver of strength. The sight of her sister's face, pale and afraid, flashed in her mind. "I am a healer. The bargain stands. I will attempt the cure, and you will protect my family." Marcus nodded, a grim finality in his expression. "The Blood Moons have already been paid. Your family is under Stone Creek protection. The bargain is sealed, healer. Do what you said you could do." Ilara took a hesitant step, then another. The cold intensified as she neared the bed. The shadows clinging to Kalen seemed to notice her, to taste the air around her. They recoiled slightly, like snakes drawing back to strike. "What will you do?" Kalen's voice was a low rasp. "Potions? Chance? Sacrifice a goat on my floor?" Ilara shook her head. She unhooked the small, worn leather pouch from her belt. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely work the clasp. "No, it is a song." A harsh laugh, broken by a gasp of pain, escaped him. "A song? My grandmother called it a soot-tongue's lullaby. It calms the blood." She sank to her knees beside the bed. She was so close now she could smell the sickness on him, a scent like ozone and crushed iron. But beneath it, something else, something wild and clean, like pine and winter air. His scent. She closed her eyes, shutting out the opulent room, the dangerous alpha, the watchful beta. She pictured Lyra, safe and sleeping in a warm bed for the first time in her life. She pictured the dust of her home, the feel of the dry wind. And then she began to sing. It was not a song of words. It was a low, humming melody that seemed to pull vibrations from the earth itself. It was the sound of growing things, of slow water, of moonlight on still stone. It was a sound of life, pure and simple. The effect was instantaneous. The shadows writhing over Kalen's skin froze. They stopped their insidious crawling. Kalen himself went rigid, his pained gasps catching in his chest. "Alpha?" Marcus stepped forward, alarmed. "Wait," Ilara breathed, not opening her eyes. She pushed the melody higher, weaving a thread of warmth into the sound, a thread of the stubborn, desperate life that thrived in the scraplands. Kalen let out a long, shuddering sigh. The sound was not of pain, but of release. The black mist in his eyes began to swirl, and then, slowly, to recede. The shadows on his skin, one by one, seemed to dissolve, sinking away as if banished by a light they could not bear. His taut muscles unknotted, the lines of agony on his face softened. His breathing, which had been ragged and harsh, deepened into a slow, steady rhythm. Ilara continued to sing, her own body trembling with the effort. She felt her energy pouring out of her, a warm stream flowing from her chest into the cold void of the curse. It was like offering a cup of water to a raging fire. After several long minutes, she tapered the song to a close. Her throat was raw, and a dizzying exhaustion made the room swim. She opened her eyes. Alpha Kalen was asleep, truly, deeply asleep. The shadows were gone. The mist had vanished from his eyes, which were closed, his dark lashes resting on his high cheekbones. He looked peaceful. Marcus was staring, his mouth slightly open. By the goddess! He hasn't slept in 3 days. He hasn't been free of the pain in years. He looked at Ilara, his eyes filled with a new, dangerous awe. "You did it." Ilara sagged, relief so potent it was almost painful. She had done it. Her family was safe. She had held up her end of the bargain. She pushed herself to her feet, her legs wobbly. "The curse is dormant. It is quieted." "You cured him," Marcus said, his voice thick. Ilara faltered. "I believe so. For now." "Then the bargain is complete," Marcus said, his professional mask sliding back into place. "You will be shown to your quarters. You will be fed. You have done the pack a great service." Ilara nodded, too tired to speak. She had done it. She was free. Or so she thought. She was given a small, clean room in the servants' wing. She ate a meal more lavish than any she'd had in her life. Roast chicken, warm bread, fresh cheese, and fell into a bed so soft it felt like a cloud. She slept for 18 hours, a deep, exhausted sleep. When she woke, A different guard was at her door. This one looked less like a soldier and more like a jailer. His face was grim. "The Alpha is asking for you," he said, his voice flat. A cold dread trickled down Ilara's spine. Is he all right?" The guard just grunted and jerked his head for her to follow. She was led back to the Alpha's chamber. The opulence felt mocking this time. Marcus was there, but the exhaustion was back, deeper than before. And on the bed, Kai-Len was awake. He was sitting up, his back against a mountain of pillows. The shadows were back. They were fainter than before, like wisps of smoke rather than thick oil, but they were there, curling around his hands and neck. The agony had not fully returned, but the tension in his shoulders was proof that it was close. "You," he said. His voice was clearer, stronger, but laced with a cold fury. "Alpha," Ilara whispered, her hands balling into fists at her sides. I thought—" "You thought you had cured me?" he sneered. "You thought you could sing one little song and undo a blood curse 5 generations old?" "It worked," Ilara insisted, her voice small. "I saw it work." "It paused it," Kai-Len corrected, his green eyes flashing. "The moment you left this room, it began to seep back in. The moment you stopped singing, the pain returned. Fainter, yes, but it is returning. And it's hungry." Ilara's stomach turned to ice. What do you mean?" "Your song," Kai-Len said, leaning forward. The shadows on his neck darkened. "It's not a cure. It's a meal. You fed the curse, and you fed me. You've done nothing but buy me a few hours of peace." "No," Ilara whispered, backing away. "That can't be." "The bargain was for a cure," Marcus said, his voice heavy with disappointment. "Not a temporary reprieve. You are a fraud, girl." "I am not," Ilara cried, desperation making her bold. "I did what I could. It's more than anyone else has done." "True," Kai-Len conceded, a grim smile touching his lips. "It is. Which puts us in a new, more difficult position." He looked at her, his gaze analytical, cold and assessing. It was the look of an alpha calculating the value of an asset. What does this mean?" Ilara asked, though she already knew. The hope that had bloomed in her chest withered and died. "It means the bargain is not complete," Kai-Len said, his voice dropping to a soft, dangerous command. "You didn't give up your freedom to cure me. You gave it up to manage me." He gestured to a door she hadn't noticed before, one that connected his chamber to an adjoining room. "That will be your new quarters. You will not leave my side. You will not go further than the length of this hall. You will be here every night and every day to sing your little song whenever the curse demands it." Ilara stared at the door, her blood running cold. It wasn't servants' quarters. It was a gilded cage. You're imprisoning me," she breathed, the horror of it sinking in. "I am holding you to our bargain," Kai-Len corrected, his voice leaving no room for argument. "You are the only thing that gives me relief. You are a resource, and I will not let you go." "My family." "Your family remains under my protection, as long as you remain useful," he said. "Do we have an understanding, healer?" Ilara looked at his hard face, at the shadows coiling around his arms, at the grim Beta standing like a sentinel. She had traded one cage for another. She had fled the blood moons only to be shackled by a silver chain to the Alpha of Stone Creek. Her freedom wasn't just gone. It had never been part of the deal. She nodded, a single jerky movement. "I understand." "Good," Kai-Len said, and he lay back against the pillows, his eyes closing. "Now, Sing. The days bled into a nightmarish routine. Ilara's life was no longer her own. It was an extension of Kalen's. Her world shrank to the size of his chambers, his sprawling bedroom, the adjoining sitting room, and her own small, starkly furnished room. She was a prisoner, but a well-kept one. She was given fine clothes of soft wool and cotton, her ragged garments burned. She ate the same food as the Alpha, rich stews and fresh bread, but she ate it alone, either in her room or on a small table in the corner of his, under his watchful, shadowed gaze. She sang. She sang until her throat was a raw, aching mess. The curse was sentient, she was sure of it now. It was a malevolent intelligence that ebbed and flowed with Kalen's moods, with the phases of the moon. It fought her. When she sang, she felt it push back, a cold, resentful presence that tried to sour her melody, to slip barbs of despair into her mind. But the curse was also predictable. It flared in the mornings, as Kalen woke, making him volatile and short-tempered. It swelled again at dusk, a rising tide of agony that left him pale and trembling. And it was at its worst in the dead of night, waking him from a fitful sleep with nightmares that had him roaring, the shadows lashing out like physical whips, striking the walls and furniture. It was in those moments that Ilara was most afraid. She would be roused from her own light sleep by his cries, and she would run into his room, her heart pounding, to find him engulfed in darkness. She would have to force her way through the palpable cold, her song a fragile shield, until she could lay a hand on his arm and pour her gift into him. And he, in the throe of the curse, would sometimes mistake her for an enemy. He would grab her, his grip like iron, his green-black eyes burning with a paranoid fury. "Spy," he would snarl. "Who sent you? Who do you work for?" "No one," she would gasp, her song wavering but never breaking. "It's me. It's Ilara. I am here. You are safe." And slowly, slowly, the man would surface. The grip would loosen. The snarl would fade, replaced by a shuddering breath. He would release her, turning his face away, ashamed. "Leave me." "I cannot," she would whisper. And she would continue to sing until the shadows receded and he fell back into an uneasy sleep. In the daylight hours, he was a different beast. He was the Alpha. He held meetings in his sitting room, Marcus and other pack leaders filtering in and out. Ilara was expected to sit in the corner, silent, a ward against the shadows, as one of them had called her. They spoke of pack business, border patrols, trade disputes, the ever-present threat of the blood moons. And Kalen? Kalen was brilliant. He was sharp, strategic, and ruled with a weary but undeniable strength. He was burdened, not just by the curse, but by the weight of 1,000 lives. Ilara began to see the man she was shackled to. The tyrant was a myth. The brute was a mask worn against the pain. He ignored her, mostly. His cold indifference was a wall between them. But sometimes she would catch him watching her. His gaze was complex, a mixture of resentment, dependence, and something else she couldn't name. A flicker of curiosity. "Where did you learn it?" he asked one afternoon. He was sitting by the window, the weak sun illuminating the weariness in his face. The shadows were quiet today, just faint stains under his skin. Ilara, who had been mending one of her new tunics, looked up, startled. "The song?" He nodded, not looking at her. "My grandmother. She was like me, a suit-tongue. She said it was a gift from the moon to soothe what is broken." "A gift," he scoffed, the sound bitter. "Feels more like a leash." "It does," Ilara agreed softly. His head snapped toward her, surprised by her honesty. "I am not your jailer, Ilara," he said, his voice low. "Aren't you?" she countered. her spirit long dormant stirring. "I cannot leave this room. I am here to serve, like a hound you whistle for." His jaw tightened, the shadows on his hands darkened. "You are here to fulfill a bargain you offered. You promised a cure. You failed. This is the consequence." "I did not know. I truly thought." "It doesn't matter what you thought," he cut in, rising to his feet. He began to pace, his restless energy filling the room. "What matters is the reality. The reality is that without you, I am lost to this thing. And if I am lost, my pack falls. The blood moons will sweep in. Your family, who you so nobly sacrificed yourself for, will be the first to be slaughtered. Do you understand your importance?" I understand my use," Ilara said, her voice shaking. Kalen stopped, standing over her. He was so tall, a mountain of contained power and pain. "We are all used, healer. I am used by my pack. My pack is used by the world. The moon uses the tides. Your gift is no different." He reached out, his finger tracing the line of her jaw, a touch so light it was almost not there. Ilara froze, her breath catching. His skin was cool. "You are an anomaly," he murmured, his gaze intense. The black mist in his eyes was almost gone, leaving only that piercing wild green. "You smell of dust and spring. It makes no sense." Ilara's heart hammered against her ribs. A strange warmth, entirely different from her healing gift, was spreading through her. It was terrifying. He snatched his hand back as if burned. He turned away, his shoulders rigid. "You are draining me." "What?" "This proximity," he said, his voice strained. "The curse, it hates you. It wants to destroy you. But he slammed a fist against the stone mantle. "I am growing accustomed to you." "Accustomed?" "Dependent," he snarled. "You are a weakness, a vulnerability. And the curse, it knows it. It feeds on it." He was right. Ilara had felt it too. The curse was getting stronger. Her songs had to be longer, more powerful. They were draining her more and more. She was paler, thinner, the exhaustion a permanent cloak she wore. She was healing him, but the curse was feeding on her in return. They were caught in a terrible, symbiotic trap. I can look for other ways," Ilara offered, her voice desperate. "In your pack library, there must be lore." "Something about the curse's origin." Kalen laughed, a harsh, dry sound. "My ancestors scoured every scroll. There is nothing. It is a blood malediction. It appears in my line every few generations, triggered by weakness." "Weakness?" "My great-grandfather, his mate died in childbirth. The curse took him a year later. My uncle, his pack was decimated by a plague. The curse manifested and drove him mad. It preys on grief, on loss." He looked at her, his eyes dark. "And now it preys on me." "I am not your grief, Alpha," Ilara said softly. "No," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "You are not. That is what frightens me." That night, the curse nearly won. It didn't come with a roar. It came with silence. Ilara woke to a cold so profound it felt as if her lungs were filling with ice. The connecting door to Kalen's room was open, and a darkness was spilling out, a darkness that muted all sound. She scrambled out of bed, her song already on her lips. But the melody fell flat, absorbed by the oppressive night. Kalen was not in his bed. He was standing in the center of the room, perfectly still. The shadows were no longer on him. They were him. He was a silhouette, a man-shaped void. The only light came from his eyes, two burning green pinpricks in the suffocating dark. "Kaelin," she whispered, her voice sounding small and distant. The void shape turned its head. It did not speak, but a voice echoed in Alara's mind, a voice of ancient cold and endless hunger. "The little bird, the sweet, warm meal, come to be eaten." "No," Alara said, taking a step back. "He is gone. There is only the hunger. There is only me." The shadow Kaelin glided forward. It moved without walking, a horrifying, smooth advance. "Kaelin!" Alara shouted, forcing her terror down. She pushed her gift, not as a song, but as a raw, desperate shove of warmth and life. "Kaelin, fight it!" The voice in her head screamed, a psychic sound that made her drop to her knees, clutching her temples. "He cannot hear you. He is mine, as you will be." A shadow tendril lashed out, faster than a snake. It wrapped around Ilara's ankle, the cold of it burning like acid. She cried out, falling to the floor. It began to drag her, pulling her across the carpet toward the waiting darkness. "No, please, Kaelin, remember!" she sobbed, clawing at the floor. She was losing. Her gift was nothing against this. She was going to be consumed, and Kaelin would be lost forever. As she was dragged closer, she looked up into the void. She could just barely make out his features, twisted into a mask of cold, predatory triumph. She had one last hope, one last thing to try. It wasn't a song of healing. It was a song of her. She poured every memory she had into it. The smell of the dust, her sister's laugh, the feel of the sun on her skin, the surprising, clean scent of pine and winter that was Kaelin. She poured all her fear, her loneliness, and her stubborn, desperate will to live. The melody was jarring, chaotic, and fiercely, achingly alive. The shadow figure recoiled, the tendril loosened. The voice in her head faltered, confused. What is this? It burns." "It's me!" Alara gasped, pushing herself up. "It's life, and you can't have it." She surged forward, closing the distance between them. She slammed her hands flat against his chest. The moment she touched him, a backlash of pure agony, his agony, flooded her. Decades of pain, of loneliness, of fighting, the sheer weight of the curse. And through it all, she felt a flicker, a tiny, buried ember of the man. "Ilara," a voice whispered, not in her head, but in her heart. "Run." "No," she thought back, tears streaming down her face. "I will not." She held on, her song of life pouring into him, a defiant bonfire against the endless winter. The shadow Kaelin roared, a sound of both the curse and the man, and a wave of pure dark energy exploded outward. It threw Ilara across the room. She hit the stone wall, and her head cracked against the hard surface. Her vision exploded in a burst of white stars, and then, mercifully, went black. She woke to the smell of herbs and the soft dab of a wet cloth on her forehead. She groaned, her head feeling like it had been split in two. "Easy, child, you're safe." Ilara's eyes fluttered open. An older woman, her face a map of kind wrinkles and steel-gray hair pulled back in a tight braid, was leaning over her. She wore the insignia of the pack's den mother, the head healer. "Where?" Ilara whispered. She was in her own bed. Sunlight was streaming through the window. "You're in your chamber. The Alpha, Kaelin, carried you here himself." The den mother, Myra, smiled softly. "He has not left your side." Ilara turned her head, wincing at the bolt of pain. Kaelin was there, sitting in a chair pulled up beside her bed. He was slumped forward, his head in his hands, but he was him. The shadows were gone. His skin was pale, he looked exhausted, but he was solid. He was real. "Kalen?" she whispered. His head shot up. His green eyes, clear and free of any mist, widened. He was at her bedside in an instant, his hands hovering over her, as if afraid to touch. "Ilara, you're awake." His voice was raw, thick with an emotion she couldn't place. "What happened?" she asked. "You saved me," he said, his voice breaking. "Last night, it had me, and you pulled me back. I don't know how. My head. You hit the wall. You've been unconscious for a day," Myra supplied gently. "A nasty concussion, but your healing gift is already mending it. You are remarkable." Kalen's gaze was fixed on her, an intensity in it that stole her breath. When I came back to myself, you were on the floor. The curse was gone." "Not dormant, Ilara. Gone. I can't feel it. I can't feel its hunger, its cold." Ilara's heart leaped. "Truly?" "It's gone," he breathed, a look of stunned disbelief on his face. "You did it. You crazy, stubborn, impossible woman. You cured me." Myra smiled. "I will leave you. I'll fetch you some broth, child." She gathered her things and quietly let herself out, closing the door. An almost unbearable silence filled the room. Kalen continued to stare at her, his expression unreadable. Ilara struggled to sit up, her head spinning. "Then the bargain is complete." Her voice was small. A strange, hollow feeling was opening in her chest, a feeling that should have been triumph, but felt like loss. I can go home?" Kalen's face hardened. He took a step back, then another, as if a chasm had just opened between them. The warmth that had been in his eyes vanished, replaced by the familiar cold mask of the Alpha. "Yes," he said, his voice flat. "The bargain is complete." "Oh," Ilara's hands plucked at the blanket. "Good. That is good. Marcus is arranging an escort for you, you and your family. You will be taken from our territory, back to the scraplands, with enough supplies and gold to last you a lifetime. You will be free." "Thank you, Alpha." The word free tasted like ash in her mouth. He nodded, a curt, dismissive gesture. He would not look at her. "Rest. You leave at dusk." He turned and walked out of her room, closing the door with a soft, final click. Ilara stared at the closed door, the silence of the room pressing in on her. She had done it. She had won. She had her freedom, her family was safe, and the Alpha was cured. So, why did it feel like she had just lost everything? The broth came. Ilara drank it mechanically. Myra returned and checked her head, pronouncing her fit to travel. New clothes were brought, simple, warm traveling clothes that felt alien after the soft wools of her cage. No one spoke of what had happened. It was as if a collective amnesia had gripped the pack. The oppressive fear that had lingered in these halls was gone, replaced by a buzzing, joyful energy. She heard laughter in the corridor, something she'd never heard before. She was a ghost again. Her purpose was served. As dusk approached, Marcus himself came to her door. His face, for the first time, was relaxed. The lines of exhaustion were gone. "Healer," he said, and for the first time he used her name, Ilara. "The escort is ready. Your family is waiting at the south gate. They are very happy." "Thank you, Marcus." She picked up her small pack. It felt impossibly light. She followed him through the halls, the same halls that had terrified her when she arrived. They felt different now, just stone and wood. They felt empty. He didn't take her to the Alpha's chamber. He didn't take her to Kalen. He led her down a servant's staircase and out into a stable courtyard. A sturdy wagon was waiting, along with 4 guards. Her family. Elara! A small figure launched itself from the wagon. Lyra, her sister, her hair clean and braided, her cheeks full and pink, threw her arms around Elara's waist, sobbing. They told me you did it. You saved him. You saved us. Elara hugged her sister tight, burying her face in her hair, breathing in the familiar, beloved scent. We're safe, Lyra. We're safe now. Her mother and father were there too, their eyes wet with tears, thanking her, calling her a miracle. It is time to go, Marcus said, his voice gentle. Elara helped her family into the wagon. She turned to Marcus one last time. Alpha Kalen, he is well? Marcus nodded. He is. He is himself, for the first time. He paused, as if debating. He asked me to give you this. He handed her a heavy purse. Gold. Payment. And something else. A small, dark green stone, polished and smooth, strung on a simple leather thong. It was his mother's, Marcus said softly. A charm for travelers. He wanted you to have it. Elara's fingers closed around the stone. It was still warm from his touch. Thank you, she whispered. She climbed into the wagon. The guards took their places. With a lurch, the wagon moved, rolling through the gates of the Stone Creek territory. Elara did not look back. She held the stone in her hand and focused on her sister's happy chatter, forcing her own treacherous heart into silence. The journey back to the scraplands was easy. The Stone Creek guards were respectful, and the lands they passed through were peaceful. But as the lush forests of Kalen's territory gave way to the familiar barren dust of her home, Elara's heart grew heavier. They arrived at the small, wind-beaten shack that had been their home. It looked small, pathetic. Her family, overjoyed, bustled about, counting the gold, marveling at the supplies. They were set for life. They could move, build a new house, be safe. Elara stood at the door, looking out at the endless expanse of gray dust. The freedom she had craved felt like a desert, empty and vast and suffocating. She missed the opulent cage. She missed the scent of pine and winter. She missed the terrifying, brilliant, broken man she had saved. Days turned into a week. Elara fell back into her old life, but she was a stranger in it. The silence of the scraplands was deafening. She kept the green stone on its thong around her neck, hidden under her tunic. She would hold on to it at night, the last piece of warmth in a world that had gone cold. You are sad, Lyra said one evening, crawling into her cot. I am just tired, Elara lied. You miss him, Lyra whispered, her voice wise beyond her years. Elara's throat closed. She couldn't deny it. He's an alpha, Elara, and we are dust folk. It was just a bargain. I know, Elara whispered, a single hot tear escaping and tracing a path through the grime on her cheek. I know. Meanwhile, back at Stone Creek, Kalen was not well. The curse was gone, the shadows were gone, but a new, more insidious ache had taken its place. The pack was thriving, his mind was clear, his body was strong, but his soul was howling. He stood in his chamber, the room now clean of all shadows, but it felt hollow. The silence was wrong. He kept listening for a song that would not come. He kept waiting for a flicker of terror and courage that was now hundreds of miles away. You're a fool, Marcus said, finding him staring out the window, his hand resting on the small, empty chair in the corner. I am an alpha, Kalen growled. I did what was right. I freed her. You exiled her, Marcus countered, and you exiled yourself. What are you talking about? You're a shifter, Kalen, an alpha. You've been sharing a den, sharing breath, sharing life with that girl for weeks. You fought a curse together. You think you can just cut that part of you away and not bleed? She is a healer from the Scraplands, Kalen roared, turning on his beta. She is not Pack, she is not mine. Aren't you? Marcus asked, his voice quiet. Then why does your wolf pace the borders of your mind every night, howling her name? Why have you not slept in the week since she left? Kalen's blood ran cold. The curse, it's not gone. It's just different. It's not the curse, you idiot, Marcus said, his patience finally snapping. It's the bond. That's what you've been feeling. That's what the curse was feeding on. It hit Kalen like a physical blow. The anomaly, the scent of dust and spring, the way her song of life had burned the curse, the way her presence, even as it drained her, had felt like the only anchor in his storm. The curse hadn't been triggered by weakness or grief. It had been triggered by her. The curse, my ancestors, he whispered, his mind racing. The lore, it activates when a mate is found. It's meant to feed on the bond, to consume the mate and kill the alpha. That's why it was so strong. It was feeding on her. And she had fought it. She, with her frail human gift, had stood against a generational curse and won. She wasn't just my healer, Kalen breathed, the truth of it landing with the force of a mountain. She's my mate. And he had sent her away. He had rejected her, paid her off, and sent his mate, the woman who had saved his life and his soul, back to the dust. The ache in his chest wasn't a new curse. It was the agony of a broken mate bond. She'll die out there, he whispered, the horror dawning. A shifter, let alone an alpha, could not survive the rejection of a true mate. But what of a human? What of a healer whose gift was so tied to her life force? And I will follow. Then go, Marcus said, his voice urgent. Go now. Bring her home. Kalen didn't need to be told twice. He didn't summon an escort. He didn't wait. He was the alpha. He was the wolf. He sprinted from the room, shedding his clothes as he ran. He threw himself from the balcony, his bones shifting, his body transforming in midair. He hit the ground as a massive, black-furred wolf, larger than any in his pack, his green eyes burning with a new, desperate purpose. He ran. He ran as he had never run before. He crossed his own borders in an hour, the forest a blur around him. He ate up the miles, his paws pounding the earth, his senses fixed on one scent, dust and spring. Ilara was kneeling in the gray dirt outside her shack, trying to coax a small withered herb to life. It was hopeless. Her gift, it was gone. Since she'd left Kalen, it was just empty. The warmth she used to call upon was no longer there. She was just a girl, in the dust, her magic as dead as her heart. She heard a sound, a frantic, panting, running sound. She looked up, expecting raiders. A wolf, a massive black wolf, standing on the ridge, its chest heaving. Its green eyes were fixed on her. Her heart stopped. "Kalen?" she breathed. The wolf let out a low whine and bounded down the ridge, crossing the distance in seconds. It stopped a few feet from her, its head low, its entire body trembling. It was him. She knew it. What are you doing here?" she whispered, her hands shaking. The wolf whined again, a sound of such profound, pleading agony that it broke her heart. He nudged her hand with his cold, wet nose. He was suffering. "You're in pain," she said, her healer's instincts, though dormant, rising. "What's wrong?" He nudged her again, more insistently, and then, with a low growl, he grabbed the collar of her tunic in his massive jaws, gentle but firm, and pulled. "Kalen, stop! What are you—" He was pulling her, dragging her away from the shack, toward the ridge. "Ilara!" her mother screamed from the doorway. "It's all right," Ilara called back, her heart hammering. He needs me." She stumbled after the great wolf, her feet slipping in the dust. He led her behind the ridge, out of sight of the shack, and then he released her. He stood panting, his green eyes fixed on hers. And then he began to shift. Ilara watched, her eyes wide, as the massive wolf convulsed, bones snapping, fur receding. In moments, Alpha Kalen stood before her, naked, magnificent, and ravaged. His face was a mask of pain. "Kalen, what's wrong? Is the curse back?" "No," he rasped, his voice raw. He staggered, falling to one knee, his hand clutching his chest. It's you." "Me? You are my mate, Ilara." The words hung in the dead, dusty air. Ilara's world tilted. "What?" "The curse. It fed on the bond, our bond, the bond I was too blind and too stupid to see." He looked up at her, his green eyes swimming with a pain that dwarfed anything the curse had inflicted. "And I rejected you. I sent you away. And it is killing me. Kalen, I don't care about me," he choked out, grabbing her hand, his skin burning hot. "It's you. Your gift. It's tied to your life force, tied to our bond. By rejecting you, I've severed you from it. Ilara, I am killing you." It was true. The emptiness, the deadness inside her. It wasn't sadness. It was the slow severing of her soul. "You came back," she whispered, tears welling. "I will never leave you again," he vowed, his voice a broken thing. "But I don't know if I'm too late. I rejected you. The bond, it's shattered." "No," Ilara said, a tiny flicker of warmth, the first in a week, sparking deep inside her. "It's not." She looked at him, the alpha on his knees in the dust, the most powerful man she had ever known, broken before her. "The curse, it was broken by acceptance, wasn't it?" she said, her voice gaining strength. "It fed on fear and rejection. It couldn't survive the bond." "Yes," he whispered, his gaze desperate. "You didn't reject me, Kalen," she said, sinking to her knees in front of him. "You rejected the pain. You rejected the curse. You pushed me away to save me. That is not rejection. That is sacrifice." His eyes widened, hope and disbelieving awe dawning. "The bargain was for my freedom," Ilara continued, her voice soft but strong. "But I don't want it. Not if it means this." She took his face in her hands. "I am Ilara of the Scraplands, a suit's tongue, and I am your mate." She leaned forward, her heart, her gift, her life roaring back in a tidal wave of warmth. "And I accept you, Kalen of Stone Creek." She pressed her lips to his. The world exploded. It was not a gentle kiss. It was a claiming. It was the frantic, desperate collision of two halves of a soul that had been torn apart. His arms wrapped around her, crushing her to him as if he could absorb her into his very being. The bond, which had been a thin, fraying thread, snapped taut, reforging itself in a blaze of silver light that Ilara could see even with her eyes closed. His pain vanished, consumed by her warmth. Her emptiness was filled, overflowing with his strength, his wildness, his life. He kissed her with all the desperation of a dying man, with all the reverence of a wolf finally finding its moon. When they finally broke apart, they were both gasping, their foreheads pressed together. "Your gift," he breathed, his hand over her heart. It's shining." Ilara looked down. A soft, silver light was radiating from her chest, from the green stone he had given her. It was glowing with her, with their power. "You are not my cure, Ilara," he murmured, his voice thick with an emotion that made her bones melt. "You are my life." He stood, lifting her effortlessly into his arms. She was light, but she was not weak. She felt whole. "My family," she whispered, as he began to walk, strong and sure, back toward the ridge. "Our family," he corrected. "They will come with us. Lyra will have gardens to run in, not dust. Your parents will have the place of honor as the family of my Luna." My Luna. The word settled over her, not as a chain, but as a mantle. Her family, stunned into silence by the sight of the Alpha carrying their daughter, could only nod as Kalen gave the order to Marcus, who had just arrived with the escort, his own wolf form panting. "Prepare them. They ride with the Alpha. With their Luna," Kalen commanded. Marcus grinned. "Yes, Alpha." Kalen shifted Ilara in his arms, turning his back on the scraplands forever. He began the long walk home, his mate held securely against his heart. Weeks later, Ilara stood on the balcony of the Alpha's chamber. Their chamber. It was no longer a tomb or a cage. It was a home. The windows were wide open, and the scent of pine and the sound of a thriving pack drifted up. She wore a simple gown of deep forest green, and the glowing stone rested in the hollow of her throat. Her gift was no longer a fragile, draining thing. It was a deep, steady well of warmth, intertwined with Kalen's own Alpha strength. She watched Lyra in the gardens below, her sister weaving flower crowns with the other pack children, her laughter a bright, clear sound. A pair of strong arms wrapped around her from behind, pulling her back against a warm, solid chest. Kalen buried his face in her hair, his low rumble of contentment vibrating through her. "You are not my keeper," he murmured, his lips brushing her ear. "And you are not my jailer," she whispered back, leaning into his embrace. "You gave up your freedom to cure a curse," he said, his voice soft, "but you broke it with your heart." "We broke it," she corrected, turning in his arms to face him. His green eyes were clear, bright, and filled only with her. "We did," he agreed. He kissed her. A slow, deep kiss of promise, of peace, of a bond not just healed, but forged in fire and shadow. She was no longer a ghost, no longer a prisoner. She was Ilara of Stone Creek, the healer who had become the heart, the mate who had become the Luna. She was home.